Okay, give people a couple minutes or a minute or two. Okay, hi everybody. My name's Glenna Gill. I am a memoir writer from North Carolina with over 400 stories published on Medium, where I've been writing since 2018. I also self-published a memoir in 2019 called When I Was Lost, A Mother's Struggle with Bipolar Disorder. And I'm thrilled to be here today with Scott Ninneman of Speaking Bipolar. He's going to have a lot of great things to share with you later. And but first, I wanted to talk to you guys about what it's like to be a writer who struggles from mental illness. My background is that in 2003, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, type 2. People who have type 2 bipolar generally have less mania than with type 1, but will have more severe depression. I've been taking medication for many years, and even with the medication, I can still have episodes of mild mania, but still severe depression. They're not always controlled. My diagnosis presents its own set of challenges, and I've had to learn to work with it instead of against it. You know, you really can't fight something that's part of you. And this also includes the hard truth about struggling to be consistent with writing and building a career for myself. There are days I feel profoundly depressed and useless, barely able to get out of bed or feed myself or shower. The worst part is that I never know when these depressive episodes are coming, which makes it hard to be consistent with writing or anything else. So I've loved to write since I was a little girl. I used to write stories for my father all the time when we were stuck in an RV up high on a mountain where it rained every day and flooded. So I'd write my dad's stories. As a teenager, I wrote some poetry, and then I tried to write some fiction in my 20s, but just kind of never followed through with it. But I walked around at all times with the feeling that I had a book somewhere in me. Millions of words and stories in my head, but just no place to land. When I discovered Medium, I was just starting to heal from a decade of domestic abuse and substance abuse issues that nearly killed me. I used the website as therapy, letting out all my raw feelings about things I'd done and what I'd been through. At first, the emotions were so strong that I'd have to get up and leave my office. But as I wrote more, I got an incredible amount of relief from my trauma. Writing truly freed me from the past, and I felt myself getting stronger and healing. It didn't matter to me at the time who was going to read the stories. If anything, I hoped that at least one person would read them and find their way out of their own bad situation. I expected nothing else. So 5 years later, I'm still sharing my deepest and most honest stories on Medium. Things have changed a lot in that time with the platform and with me, and but my love of writing has always stayed the same. People have related to what I went through in my life, and that one person I was originally wrote my stories for has turned into 12,000 followers. I'm grateful for every bit of it. I used to get so frustrated over stats and views and all that other stuff. My stats were either very high or very low. And it seemed like I'd always get off to a good running start and then fail to keep it going. Finally, I realized that my stats looked exactly like a bipolar mood chart. The peaks and valleys were totally consistent with my low-grade manic episodes and my severe depression. You could see it clear as day. So So this revelation helped me a lot with acceptance of living with this illness. It's nobody's fault, mine either, that I won't likely be the most consistent writer out there. We are all doing our best. If I believe that I've been given a gift for writing, I also have to believe that bipolar disorder is part of that gift. Accepting that reminds me that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And having said that, I have some things that help me, when I'm having trouble writing or depressed, or just things that kind of make the bad times a little shorter and the writing times a little easier. Basically, if you take medication for your mental health, like I do with bipolar disorder, be sure to take it at exactly the same time every day. If you feel tired during the day or can't sleep at night, ask your psychiatrist if the times and doses can be adjusted to give you peak performance whatever time of day you write. Write more when you're feeling good and motivated. In some cases, the extra stories you write can hold you over during the times you don't feel well enough to create. Just make sure not to overdo it and burn yourself out. Drink a giant glass of water in the morning and spend 15 minutes in the sun every day. This seems like obvious advice, but it's really hard to do when you're severely depressed. But if you can just drag yourself out there and sit in a chair, it will help you. Just the sunlight and the water, they really have healing effects, and it makes it a lot easier. If I can manage to actually drink water and go outside and sit, I find my episodes of depression don't really last as long. I mean, if I'm vigilant about it every day, I start to feel better sooner. And of course, bonus points if you listen to music while you're sitting outside, because that can be really helpful too. So I just want you to know that just because you missed some time writing does not mean that you're a failure. When we're depressed, our brains randomly shoot out negative thoughts about ourselves. And if we're not careful, we can get buried in them. And this happens to me a lot, actually. But what I have to do is each negative thought that comes into my head, I have to challenge it and turn it into a positive thought. Whether it's true or not, whether I believe it or not, I just do it anyway. Because if I let those negative thoughts pile up and up and up, then I'm buried and I can't get out. And if, for example, take that nagging thought that you're not a real writer and remind yourself every single time that not only are you a real writer, but you're also a great one too. And lastly, remember that our writing muses do not like to be ignored for too long, and they'll always back up when we least expect it. So make sure that you are rested and ready to go when it does. In conclusion, I want to thank you for sharing your time with me today. I've really enjoyed being here. And with that, I'd like to introduce Scott Ninneman of Speaking Bipolar and let him share his gentle wisdom with everybody. And we will take any questions when Scott finishes speaking. Thank you. Hi, Scott.
Hi, thank you so much, Glenna. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Scott Ninneman, and I'm a writer from Southeast Tennessee. I've been writing on Medium since July 2019. I'm also the editor of the Speaking Bipolar publication on Medium. Over the last few years, I published 500 stories on Medium, mostly centered on how to live a full life with mental illness. Today, I want to share a post I wrote a while ago. Well, I wrote this post thinking about writers fighting bipolar disorder. I think all writers will understand. It's called The 3 Phases of Being a Writer with Bipolar Disorder. To be a writer, you have to be a little off. Maybe it's why so many writers also have a mental illness. Or perhaps having a mental illness may inspire you to become a writer. I can't be sure on this one. What I can tell you is what it's like to be a writer with bipolar disorder. Just like everything else in life, bipolar makes the world of writing an adventurous place. Typically, I'm in one of 3 phases. Phase 1, I can write everything. Bipolar disorder is best known by its 2 cycles of mania and depression. While you live most days somewhere in between, the two extremes can hit without warning and with a vengeance. In my experience, you don't have to be near either extreme for bipolar to affect your writing. On the one hand, you have mania and hypomania. While manic, inspiration is plentiful and words fill your head. Ideas will fly at me with such ferocity that I can hardly write them down fast enough. My blog topics folder has over 100 ideas of projects I want to write, and my drafts folder has another 100 partially completed drafts. The days when the ideas are flowing, I might write 10,000 words or more. A few times I've even done 15,000. Might also start 15 new stories. Those are the good days of being a writer with bipolar disorder. Mania, though, always brings with it its evil twin, depression. With depression, everything stops. Phase 2, I can write nothing. The depressive side of bipolar disorder brings all writing to a stop. It's not that the ideas completely go away, but suddenly you don't know how to put them together. Not only does motivation disappear, but so does your willingness to put in the effort. You stop caring about writing or your readers. Yes, that's a harsh truth, but it's a reality. Bipolar depression can take away all emotion and enthusiasm. Nothing feels like it matters, so all writing stops. Don't get me wrong, I love my readers. I'm thankful for every one of you. On bad days, though, that's a hard thing to remember. With the extreme ups and downs out of the way, you might think that the rest of the time it would be easy to write. Yet, being a writer with bipolar disorder includes one more variable. Phase 3. What's writing again? Bipolar blur is my term for the days when the world is a swirling haze around you. You see the world, but you're not connected to it. Many with chronic illnesses call a similar state brain fog. This fog can appear both during a manic and a depressive episode and at any time in between. For whatever reason, your brain turns off. Writing becomes an alien concept. There are no words to write even if you want to. Those are the days you struggle to remember how to tie your shoes or turn on the TV. The art of writing becomes a foreign language you've never heard before. There's also no way to produce anything on the bipolar blur days. Since being a writer with a mental illness has so many obstacles, is there anything you can do? Absolutely. And it's simple. Just keep writing. When coping with mental illness, it's vital you never stop fighting. The battle never ends, so you must never quit. Writing is the same. The only way to be a successful writer is to exercise writing muscles. You must keep writing. Keep putting words on paper, no matter how incoherent they might be. Not everything is for the world to see, and that's perfectly okay. On foggy days, when there are no words and you don't know how to type or hold a pen, then try audio files. Open a talk-to-text app on your phone or computer and start talking. The words don't have to make sense, and you don't have to do it for a long time. Even 5 minutes will keep your creative brain nourished. This will make it much easier to write the next time your brain is willing to work with you. In the last few weeks, I've cycled rapidly through all 3 phases of writing mayhem. Too many words, no words, and a vague recollection of what words even are. They all stopped me. But I care about my readers, and I care about my art. So I sit here at this very desk, and I keep writing. And you can do it too. Thank you for listening. So, Glenna, what do you say we open this up now to a Q&A section and see if there are any questions in our box? And if there's any questions that you have about writing about mental illness or writing with mental illness, please put your questions in the Q&A box for us.
Yeah, I'm looking. I see a couple names down at the bottom. I'm not sure if those are questions. Do you see that?
Well, there's a Q&A tab, and it's blank. The first to ask a question, so.
I see a few names. Let me just click on one of these. And I don't know what it does. Hold on.
All right.
I don't know what it just did. It disappeared. Anyway, I'm looking for the Q&A box. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Uh-oh. We might have just lost Glenna. All right. Until she comes back, one of the things I was thinking that I've been asked before is how much should you share when you're writing about a mental illness? And my answer to that would be whatever you're comfortable with. Um, it's in, it's possible to write things too soon after something happens. Like one of the things I've been writing about recently is about a time I was in a psychiatric hospital shortly after I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And that happened in 1995, but this is the first time that I've really been able to unpack that and write about it, because it's some things are really painful, and when you relive them, they're equally as painful. So just kind of gauge where you're at, and what you're going through, and see if you feel ready to write about a specific topic, especially if it's something that was traumatic. I was in another session earlier today, and the writer was talking about writing about trauma specifically, and she gave the advice, and I forgot to write her name down, but she said, be sure to pace yourself. Don't try to tell all of your story at one time. And I think that's an important piece too to keep in mind, because we want, especially if you have bipolar disorder like me, you want to take off running and you want to tell everything all at once, just get it all out. But that's not always the best way to do it. Sometimes it's better to pick just a piece of the story. For example, the series that I've been writing about my stay in a psychiatric hospital, it's now 10 posts, I think. Each one is about a different portion of the stay or even a part of the stay. And it's been easier for me to write it that way too, because it gives me time to just look at one part of what happened, and what led me there, because it was a pretty dark time in my life. Let's see. And she's back. Thank you. All right. Amy, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hold on. I'm so sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, yes. Can you hear me?
I just cannot hear you. Keep going, Scott. I'll figure it out.
Okay, as you can tell, this was a brand new thing for all of us today. Let's see. One of the other topics that we talked about is whether or not you should use your own name when writing on Medium. There's a lot of disagreement from different people on that. I will tell you that when I first started, I did write under a pen name. I actually had a blog first under a pen name, and I had that for about a year. And when I first started on Medium, I was under a pen name. I stopped because for me, it was a wall between me and my readers, and I felt like I could never be authentic with it. But I know a few female writers, especially, who have done it because they've escaped very scary relationships. And so in that case, absolutely write under a pen name. No one needs to know who you really are. So, all right, Glenna, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I started out not writing with a pen name. I just went like all my own name, my own people that I wrote about. But then I realized, like, down the road, I have kids and I don't want them to necessarily see a lot of, so I changed everyone's names now.
I hear you. I was just reading through the comments to see if I missed any questions in there.
Okay. I didn't mean to disappear on you.
That's fine. That's fine. It happens. So one thing I did cover was I talked about how much should you share in your writing. Do you have a comment on that about like how much you think you share, or how much you share in your stories?
I pretty much share everything, and I started doing that at first because I found it was really healing for me just to get everything out, like all the toxic junk and from the way I was living. just to be honest, really for the first time in years, it helps a lot. And I'm a little more careful now because people read it that I don't necessarily like family people.
Yeah.
So I'm a little more careful. But yeah, I've always just been out there like that.
Yeah. And that's a good point because some people will judge you. Even longtime friends, family my family was not happy when I started writing openly about
Oh
mental
no.
illness.
Oh.
And then one of the first comments I got was, "What are you going to write about me?" And I said, "Well, you don't understand. I'm not writing about you. I'm writing about me.
Yes.
This is what I went. You may be a character that shows up in my story, but the story is not about you." So,
Yeah, it's true. Because I mean, I told you my secret motto earlier today. Let whoever think whatever. You know,
yes.
you gotta not worry so much about that kind of thing and keep moving on.
Yeah. There's a question down here for you, Glenna. It says, if I may ask, what personally gave and gives you the strength and motivation to get and stay sober, especially with having bipolar? I still struggle.
Um, well, basically, I was drinking a lot when I was drinking. Like, I would take like 8 to 10 shots every day of vodka, and it just became such a habit. It would like the bottle would be on the counter. It just become such a habit to walk by and take a shot and keep going. And I'd be working, and I felt like, oh yeah, because it's easier to write when you're drunk, which is not true at all. But I started to have health problems because of my liver. And once I realized that, and that the fact that it could really like end up killing me, I stopped completely because I wasn't ready to trade my life for get drinking.
So, and how many years has it been that you've been sober now?
It's been 2.5 years, except for 6 weeks last Christmas when I found out the hard way that I'll never be able to sip a drink and have one and move on. And
Yeah.
because once I had that one, I was off to the races all over again. So
Yeah.
I caught myself doing that, and now I will not go back ever.
Well, that's good you learned, though. That's a good example for us, too.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question. I'm going to skip over part of this. It says, my question is also on how much to share. But precisely knowing the stigma around mental illness in the real world, how do you push yourself past the firewall that keeps telling you not to say anything? Or do you wait until you are well to write about when you weren't? Can I start this one?
You can.
Um, and to the person who submitted this, I don't know how long you've been on Medium, but Medium is a very special place. I've been writing very personal stuff on Medium now for 5 years. In that time, I've had maybe 5 negative comments. Everything else has been, thank you for sharing your story, or I wish you the best of luck, or oh my God, this connected. This is my story too. Thank you so much for sharing it. So, in that sense, Medium is probably the best place to share your story because you don't have trolls. Medium does a really good job with moderating stuff, and you don't have the hatred that you have on a lot of the social media sites. So it's a safe place that you can get started. And that's also why a lot of people start with a pen name, because they can get out there and they can start experiencing Medium. And then if they want to open up more about themselves, they can.
I agree with what you said, Scott. I think totally putting it out there is always the way I've done it. And for me, it's the best way to do it. Because, part of me wants to tell my story so that other people maybe that are in this bad situation can read what I did and read how I got out and maybe spark them to get out. And I don't know how often it really happens, but one would be okay, and that would be worth it. That means I have to time on myself about all sorts of cool stuff, then that's just what it means.
Um, all right, so a writer shares writing writing honestly about my mental health issues was a key part of my healing journey and still is. From Wendy. Wendy, I agree. I tell my readers every week that writing is my therapy now. It's how I work through everything. Not everything makes its way onto Medium, but it is a huge part of my journey and healing from things from my past.
It's very true. Because I remember getting really mad over something the other day, and I was like, I have to go write this down. Right? Like when the feeling is the strongest inside you, the more you want to go and get it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Sophie asks, if you start by writing under a pen name, then decide to come out under your real name later, how do you do that? For me, I was still early enough along in my Medium journey. I just closed the old account and I opened a new one. But if you've already established a following on Medium, you could just change your username or your profile name, and you could say, this is so and so, formerly known as, and just put it there that way if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ways you could do it.
Sorry.
Let's see.
Yeah, I see the question about a pen name here. I've never used a pen name. I've changed other people's names in my story, but not my own. So I've never had the connection with that. I will be as honest as I could. Sorry.
The joy of being a pet owner. Let's see. Anthony's asking, how do I use a pen name? I've already written about my 2 strokes, nearly dying and working through depression. I should stay as me. Just wondering about the pen name. Again, when I wrote under a pen name, it was a separate account. And I know a few other writers have done the same thing. They just opened a second account with a different email address and everything. The only problem is that you're starting with 0 when you do that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could, if you change your name, you repurpose your old stories with your name you're going to use. And just like Scott said, formerly so and so.
Yeah. So Jenny wants to know what your dog's name is.
That is Stella. We told her to be good during this whole thing, and she waited till the end. And
well, that's good. That's good. Well, awesome. Well, I can't believe we're nearing the end.
Oh my God.
So I just want to, before we get cut off, though, I just want to say again, thank you, Glenna, for having me on this, and thank you everyone for showing up. It's been an honor to be part of Medium Day, and we are so excited to be sharing all this with you today.
Thank you guys all for coming, and thank you, Scott, for everything.
It's been a fun adventure. If we do this again next year, we're definitely going to have to do it together.
Without the dog.
Without the dog. There you go. Let's see. I thought I saw one more question here that we might be able to get in. Yeah. What are good reasons for using a pen name? I publish under my real name, but I've considered changing. Some people write under a pen name to conceal their identity. Either they're telling a story. Like there's a writer I really, really like on Medium who writes under a pen name because she escaped a very violent man. He doesn't know where she is. So everything is under a pen name. That's a valid reason, but other times it may be that you're just not ready to share your story openly.
Mhm.
It's a way to kind of tip your toes in the water and see if you like writing and about this subject. Would be another reason you might want to.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Because if you're not sure you want to put yourself out there, you can put someone else's yourself out there and be able to write and publish things and not worry. Yes, Jenny, I'll bring the dog next time.
All right. Well, I think our time is
Oh no!
up.
Are they gonna kick us out?
I think at some point they will. That went a whole lot faster than I thought.
I know. Thank you guys so much for being here.
Yes, yes.
It means a lot.
Be sure to check out Glenna's work. She's got some stories on Medium, so make sure you check out her work.
And check out Scott's writing and publication too, because you get a lot of good information on there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
I don't know how to turn it off.
I think there's a leave button up here. So
leave.
Enjoy your next session, everyone, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you very much, and thank you again, Scott.
Oh, thank you. This was great.
It was.
All right. You take care.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.